What is under the earth? It's a question often being raised when people start looking into flat earth. Then people wonder what is underneath the flat earth. The question comes into the same category as asking, where does the universe end? And it's a kind of a difficult question because to our logic it seems like it has to end somewhere. And then the question comes, well, what is that? What is kind of after that, right? And so the thing is that it doesn't have an end, and it cannot have an end because non-existence is not possible. So how to kind of get around this kind of contradiction and kind of logical challenge requires a different worldview. And the thing is that we are, due to our education and scientific worldview and so on, we're completely glued into a materialistic worldview. And in order to kind of get a grasp on this theme, we have to shift to an idealistic point of view. So it's two different kind of perspectives on reality. A materialistic point of view, which says that the world is real and the world is physical, it's material, it's substantial. And the other philosophical position that says, no, this is not so. The world comes from the ideas, comes from consciousness. And this is expressed in many kind of myths and religions and mythologies. And my background is basically Advaita Vedanta, which is very clear on this, that consciousness is reality. And the physical world is an apparent reality. It's a projection of consciousness. This is also very clear in a philosopher as Plato. And Plato was clear on this, that consciousness is the reality. And so this was kind of changed around when his student Aristotle disagreed with his teacher and came up with the idea that the physical world is reality, nature is reality. So therefore, that was the kind of the starting point of science, and where science actually got it all wrong, in the sense that it's okay to study the kind of nature, but it's still kind of a limited study because you are studying something that is finite and limited. But once you start putting this into a greater context, asking questions like, well, where does the universe end, and what is underneath the earth, and so on, it becomes a completely different ballgame, and it has to be seen in this context. So back to Plato, because Plato had this idea, you maybe have heard about the cave, the allegory of the cave, where the idea is that the slaves are sitting inside a cave chained to the floor, and their heads are positioned, they're forced to just look forward, and there is a screen, and upon this screen there is being projected images of animals and everything that goes on, and there's what the slaves can't see is that behind them there is people holding up sticks, and there is a light source behind them, which is the cause of everything that takes place on the screen. And so Plato says that it's only a rare slave who is able to break the chains of ignorance and to understand how this kind of movie theater works. And through this understanding, through this knowledge, he's able to free himself from the chains of ignorance and walk out into the light and unify himself with the light. And so, this kind of worldview is very much forgotten, and I don't think many people really understand Plato. Neither did I when I studied philosophy once upon a time at the university. I didn't understand Plato whatsoever because I was looking at it through my materialistic glasses. And those glasses, everybody has those on because we think the world is real. And so in order to understand this, and in order to understand Plato and Vedic cosmologies and so on, one has to really shift onto an idealistic perspective. And from an idealistic perspective, the world is not real. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's not real in the sense that it doesn't change. For something to be real, it has to be permanent and it doesn't change. You can't get rid of it. Something that is always is in existence. So existence and consciousness has those kind of qualities, that existence has no beginning and has no end. It has always been there, and the same thing goes for consciousness. Consciousness and existence is the same. You cannot have existence without consciousness. So this kind of idealistic perspective has to be in place first to get a kind of grasp on what is underneath the earth, or where does the universe ends. Okay, so the thing is that the world is not real. It's on an apparent reality. It seems real for sure, but when you analyze it, when you go into it, you find that there is no substance, there is no matter, there is no material in there. Even physicists says that. If you go into the molecule, you go into the atom, you come to ultimately to nothing, energy and nothing, which is called unlimited potential, or was Deepak Chopra calls it the ground of being. So out of this unlimited potential, the world is being projected. And this is very similar to what is being said in the Vedas, and what Plato says, that the world is a projection, like the slaves in the cave. From this light source of consciousness, the world projects itself into this dream world. So it's very similar to what you experience at night. You experience dreams at night, and they seem real when you experience them, but the next morning they're gone. The same goes for yesterday, whereas yesterday now it's gone. You can't bring it back. If it was real, you should be able to bring it back. And also your life up until now is also gone. So the thing is that life is this constant flux of movement. And it's like a film, it's like, or a piece of music. It just keeps on playing, and you cannot stop it and say, I want to kind of maintain just this moment. Because the moment is always there, but it always changes. So the world is a plane of existence, and it's not real. It's apparently real, and therefore underneath there is maybe other planes of existence, and above us there is other planes of existence. So when we die, we go to another dream world, but now we're into this kind of physical dimension which definitely kind of exists, and the laws of nature exist and so on, and we live in time, in space-time. So there is two dimensions happening here at the same time. There is the infinity and the moment, which is the same. Infinity doesn't exist in time, and neither does the moment. The moment doesn't exist in time. There is no borders between where does the past end and the moment takes over, and where does the moment end and the future takes over. So these two dimensions is the same. So the thing is that these two the dimensions exist simultaneously, and we have to kind of understand life as the dynamics between reality and apparent reality. This is called Maya, or illusion, and which means what makes the impossible possible. So creation myths start out with saying that in beginning there was the one, and which divided itself into two. In the Bible it says, in the beginning God created heaven and earth. And this is the same concept, like God is then the consciousness, the one, the non-dual consciousness which exists prior to any creation. And so this splits itself into two, positive and minus, negative and positive, yin and yang, Shiva and Shakti, man and woman, and so on. And so then you get a complete creation from this first initial projection of consciousness, which we can call creation. And then time, space-time appears, and a creation appears, but it is kind of surrounded with has its existence within consciousness. And life, therefore, is a consciousness phenomenon. So the physicist Nassim Haramein, he has a great image of this, where he says you have to imagine a swimming pool, and within the swimming pool there's water, and the water is completely still. And so this is before anything is being created, before anything has happened. And if you look into the swimming pool, there is nothing going on. You can't see anything, there is no objects, there is no experience. But there is only the water, okay? And so for some strange reason, there is some energy appearing, and there is a whirl all of a sudden appearing in consciousness or in the pool. And then you say, oh, now there is an object, there is something to experience. And so in that sense, then creations take place, and more whirls, more spinning, more action in the swimming pool, and eventually you have a whole complete world where everything is going on. So this is very similar, this allergy of the water in relation to the waves. So consciousness is like the ocean, and the waves in the oceans is all the experiences. So awareness without an object is consciousness. And consciousness with an object, that's called an experience. So this takes place also in a computer, in the sense that a computer consists of the combinations of two figures, 0 and 1. And then from this, several mathematically complex combinations and so on creates everything that goes on the screen. And so similarly, we can imagine that the world is this construction, this very organically, intelligently, mathematically constructed reality, starting out with a basic polarity, and this is then diversifying itself into this enormous, fantastic, amazing experience that we're having. But it's a dream world. It's not real. There is no substance to it. If you try to hold on to it, it's like cotton candy. You cannot hold on to the moment and say, this is it, because it always keeps changing. It's like a piece of music. Like we're listening, we're playing, we're living. So that's why, we're frustrated about time, because we think, oh, what happened to the life? Where did my life go? And so on. So the point is, this is it. The life is what is happening in the moment. And there is nothing else. There is only the moment. There is actually no time. And space-time is this projection of consciousness that seems real, and where all the laws of nature works and operates and so on. So one has to be realistic in the sense that if you're going to catch a plane, you have to be there on time, etc. So this is basically it. If you want to understand what is underneath the earth, you have to step out of the materialistic point of view. If you're going to answer it from a materialistic point of view, it's impossible. It's going to end in a contradiction. It's going to end in the stupid question like, okay, it has to end somewhere, but what is outside of that? And so otherwise, and therefore the only realistic take on this is to apply an idealistic perspective and understand that the world is not real, and that we live on a plane of existence. And there is other planes, and right now we are on this plane, and it's a very, very fascinating place to be, and I enjoy every moment of it. I hope you do too.